Hi everybody and welcome back to part 5 of Plastic Models for Beginners, Tamiya 135th scale Panzer Kampfwagen 38T. Okay, so in the last video I got the tracks done and I had to determine what I'm going to do as far as the fenders and all that, and here is what I have come up with. So what I like to do is I like to leave the running gear off of the vehicle, especially when there's like really large components, like say the bogies on a Sherman tank or the interleaved wheels of a Tiger or Panther, or in this case these big wheels, because you can't get back behind there to paint it right or weather it. So what I usually do is I just assemble the whole thing, put the fenders on, etc., and then do all that and then install the running gear. But in this case, the way the fender is designed, I wouldn't be able to do that. So here's what I'm going to do. None of these are glued into place. This is held on by friction with a poly cap. So what my intention is to do this. Using my self-closing tweezers, I'm going to pull this together like that. Glue the track and then let it dry really well. Then all I have to do is carefully pull this poly capped wheel off and all the rest of the wheels will come off no problems. Then whenever I get all the painting on the wheels, the tracks, and the vehicle underneath the fenders done, all I have to do is put some glue on the axles and then slide it all back into place, and I'll be good to go. So that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do this, squeeze this together. I'm going to have to do one track at a time. I'm going to have to let it dry like overnight or something. I'm going to put it on its side like this. And apply the cement like that. Then I am going to take the whole shooting match out of the way like that. So that is that. So I'm going to let that dry. While I'm letting that dry, I'm going to go ahead and cut the other fender off and get that cleaned up. So while that is drying, I'm going to go ahead and assemble this. Now I'm doing version B of the kit, markings B. So these are the parts I need for the front plate. So I'm going to cut these parts off, get those ready to go while that track over there is drying. So we need two A19s. B10, and C15. All right, those are all cleaned up, so now I can glue them in place. Now, since I can get these from the back side, that's the way I'm going to glue them. Like that. Cool thing is you could glue these things open if you wanted to. this blank out place. On the other version, there would be a machine gun on a ball mount here, but as I said, I'm not doing that version. So, like that. And there's that part. So next, I need to cut out C24 and C25 for the antenna mount. Okay, so this. Just like that. All right, so there's that, and then this goes, there's a weird little angled cutout right there. That matches, whoops, that right there. It's just a matter of picking it up and oh man. There we go. Just like that. Just make sure it's bottomed out and angled correctly, and boom. There it is, just like that. All right, so before I move on any further and start doing the fenders, I've decided that the best course of action, so I don't get a kink right here on the track, is to glue it to the idler. I don't freak out because it'll still be easy to paint and weather it, but this is giving me some trouble, so that is what I'm going to do. So using my Tamiya extra thin, I'm going to put some around the edges like this. Because this track is so close to this this idler, I think it will be fine as far as painting and weathering. And there's some tricks, you know, that a person can do to make it easier to paint and weather. Now, the way these things are actually supposed to be installed is just all installed and everything painted on the kit. It just makes it hard to weather, and that's what I don't want to end up with. So there's that. So I'm going to set this aside now, and we'll let that dry further. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one here. So I'm going to find the idler wherever I put it. All right, so now we can carry on. So since I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and glue the fenders on. So let's go ahead and test fit it first. After I clean this up. And take a look here like this. All right, so we got to make sure that everything lines up. Okay, all that lines up pretty good. front. That looks pretty good. Do need to sand that, trim that off. Okay, here's something to note. So everything fits just fine all the way back. Now right here, you really have to pay attention because right underneath this little strap-like part there is an ever so slight notch. And there is a similar protrusion here with just a little bit of a lower point. So that kind of interlocks together. If you don't pay attention, you could get it over or not on there completely. Because if you can see right here, this flange should be proud of the fender a little bit. On this side here. So it should look like that. So that is something to pay attention to. And then as it's glued, it's just a matter of making sure it stays level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this stuff first. All these line up here, and you got to make sure they rest up against the side of the hull so the fender is level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it from the underside like this, and just apply pressure that keeps this at a right angle to the hull side, if that makes sense. So here we go. I'm going to hold that in place while it sets up, making sure that everything stays level. Okay, so now put just a little bit of cement right here where that attaches. Hold that in place. Eyeball it. Looks level. And then cement this part up here, making sure that this is pressed into place like it should be. That. And hold it in place, make sure it's level. There it is. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I do this other fender because I don't want to knock it out of whack. I will place it on here and make sure it all lines up. Yeah, that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and glue it on there because I don't think I'll bump the other side. not talking much because I'm concentrating. I'm focused. And looky there. So there is that. So here you can see what I'm talking about. This flange. The fender is on the outside of that flange on both sides. Okay? So that is that. Now, I can glue this front plate on. Right here. It goes like that. And these supports need to be flush with the fender as well. So let's go ahead. Glue those there. Then put the glue there. A little bit there. Make sure I'm going to use this clamp, make sure that stays together. As soon as I glue this side over here, because this other side is not going to need a clamp. Let that dry for a minute. So while that is drying, I'm going to do B7 and B8, P2 and 3. So let me cut those off and make sure I keep them separated according to the way they are on the instructions. So we got B8 on the left, B7 on the right, like that. Then we need P2 and P3. P2, P3. Okay, so these parts go here, and it's the nice thing is that they fit in there and they snug up pretty good. So breaking my own rule, I am going to actually put a little bit of this on here, like that, cringing the whole time. Put that in place. Then, once I get them in there, I will add a little bit more to make sure they stay. So, same thing on this side. sure they're bottomed out on the little shoulder thing that's in there, little tab, and add a little bit more like that. Okay, now with those glued into place, we can glue these onto the back of the vehicle, possibly. Holy cow, there we go. Whoa, there we go. Just like that. That's stellar. So for these, because there's a lot of room there, and I don't want to foul up the joint. I'm going to do this. Hope. There we go. Just like that. And kaboom. Nice. Splendid. And then for good measure, little touch there, and there's a necessary. Nope. But I'm doing it because I can. There and there. Okay, so that takes care of that part of step 11. So now I need to do the hatches, C17 and 18, the jack block, C22, handle, B27. So let's do C17 and 18 first. 17 and 18. Okay, so I'm going to use this glue again. Like that. And first we'll put C17, and there's little hinges, so you got to make sure you put them the right way. The lower one first, or it goes on this side, the upper one goes on that side. If you don't, the other part of the hatch won't fit on. Okay, there's that, and then yeah, just like that. Perfect. So next, I'm going to cut off B27, which is the little grab, or the, I guess you'd call it a hatch handle. That's right here. And for those, since they're so stinking tiny, you gotta be real careful when you clean them up. Like that. And then sand any seam line off, because if you don't, it's going to show up once the weathering starts. Okay, so that's good. And it shows on the instructions here, the handle, it's going to be totally flat across the bottom, And on the top, it kind of dips down where these round contact points are. So you got to make sure you put it the right way, like that. So again, take a little bit of this cement there and there. Press it into place and make sure it covers those little indentations in the hatch completely. All right, so then we need C22, which is the jack block right here. Some stuff I like to leave off for painting. Some things it's not as important, like this for instance. This is flat enough that it won't make it hard to airbrush. So it'll be good, but I am gonna sand that edge down a little bit, like that, and like that. Okay, and there are two locating bars there that fit in these slots here, so you know which way to put it, just like that. And I'm going to glue that from the underside. Let's see, yep, glue it like this, that, and like that. Okay, and then the last two parts, C19 and 20, which are the fender supports. So we'll cut those off. So we got C20 goes on that side, C19 goes on this side. Now there are some shallow ejector pin marks here. I'm going to sand those out just like that. And then we can glue these in place. So these bottoms right here fit in that slot right there and go across the fender like that. And boy, they fit like a champ. So we'll put some cement there and there. Oh yeah, that's stellar. Just like that. Same thing right there and right there. Just try to get your finger in the glue because it'll make things look horrible. And we wouldn't want that. Need a little bit more glue on the end. Just like that. Stellar. All right, and that takes care up to step 11. All right, now we can jump over to step 12 and build these two storage bins here. So I'm going to cut these parts out here. B32, see 28, 29, 32, and 33. And I'll go ahead and cut out the parts for the left side bin, 30, 31, 34, and 35. Okay, so there are two little protrusions there and a little flat rectangular piece there that fits there. So not too difficult. So put a little bit of cement on here just so I can tack it together. Then I'll put more to hold it in place. Like that. And then this piece here, there's a tab there and a slot here. And then that notch there fits that pin there. So let's put it like this. Make sure it's all pressed together. Like that. And then carefully same thing on this end. Some notches, tabs, etc. So I'm going to lay this down like this. Again, put just a little bit of cement on here so I can tack it in place. Like that. Try not to squish the parts that I've already glued. Whoa. Oh my goodness. There we go. And then add some cement to reinforce it. Like thusly. Okay, so there it is. So I will do the same thing with this one. All right, so now I've got them glued together, so now I can install them on the side. It's very easy. This flange fits in this cut out on the fender, and then there's little indentations here that fit these little ever so slight protrusions by those fittings there. So it just goes like that. And it all fits together really well. So put a little bit of cement there. And there. Kind of hold it in place. So now I'll glue the other side here. And it fits the same way. There's a cutout. And it fits right there like that. Snug as a proverbial bug. So, gotta say, the fit on this thing's pretty dandy. But then again, shouldn't come as any kind of surprise, being a Tamiya kit and all. Alright, so that takes care of that part of step 13. So the next part is, let's see, let's do the front tow hooks, C60 or C6 and C7. Alright, these are cleaned up and they are sighted, so you do want to make sure that you get them on the right side, C7, C6, because they have a little bend in the end of the hook. So I'm just going to put that there. And there's a bit of a seam line that needs to be sanded off, which I did off camera. So I think you guys pretty well have it figured out how to do that now. Now, as for the spare track bracket for the front, I am not actually going to glue that yet because I want to be able to paint the spare track separately before I glue it into position. Okay, so there's that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the bracket itself, which is A2, and see how it fits. Because if it'll fit snug, I can put it in place for painting and then just remove it whenever I'm ready to actually glue it in place. So I'm going to get this cleaned up. There's a slight bit of a protruding line along the edge from the molding process, so that needs to be removed like that. Let's see, yeah, it's good. All right, so let's put this in here. Let's see how snug it is, because if it's snug enough, I'll leave it. If not, yeah, that's kind of loose, so I don't want to take a chance of losing that. So I'm gonna, for my parts awaiting paint bin, put that there. So then the next thing is to glue this thing. I don't know what it is. Some kind of a ring. I don't know if it's sighting aid or something, but I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to cut the parts for the No-Tech light off, and I will cut the crowbar tool. I'll cut that off, which is C27, and then this little cover thing here, whatever that is, can't remember what it is. I think it's a cover for the other light. Okay, those are all cut and clean, so now we can put them in place. So first, let's test fit this one here. So this crowbar, it has an indentation where the fork is, but it's not actually cut out. So I'm going to cut it out so it looks a little more of the realistics. It's got a nice like that. That's a little bit better. I'm stoked, as they say. So let us see if it fits on here. Oh, it does. Imagine that. But I think I'm going to wait to put that in place because it could get in the way of some painting and weathering. So that one will go in here as well. Trim this a little bit off the bottom here. Okay, so that's over there ready to go. So let's do this little weird thing. Now this has a direction. So it shows here in the illustration, right here's the little tab that goes in. That goes to the back. So we're going to orient it the correct way. Like that. So I'm going to put a little bit of cement in the slot there. And then install it like that. Use my tweezers. Make sure it's seated in properly. And viola. There it is. Alright, so next, this little cover of whatever it is, it's got a triangular shaped hole that fits around this little tab here and this forms a triangle. And it's cool because there's also, it's indented here and here to allow for the rib on the what you call fender. Well, looky there. Fits like a champ. Throw some cement on there. Make sure it's lined up. Thusly. Splendid. Okay, so there's that. Now we got to put this little teeny tiny thing together. Now, hopefully as you can see here, this little block on the top of this post sticks out more that way. That goes toward the front of this light. So it's going to go together like this. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to put a little dab of cement in there. Put that in there and make sure that it is level. Let it dry for a minute, and then I can install it on the fender. Okay, that looks pretty good. So, it's going to fit right there like that. So let's go ahead, put a dab, and put it in place like that. Make sure it's straight and level. And we're good. All right, next I need to do step 14, which is the rear hull details. So we've got the light, I think they call it a convoy light or something like that, march light maybe. These two brackets here, whatever they're for. This tail light here, toe pintle, and this little subassembly here. So I'm going to cut those parts out for assembly. Okay, so all those parts are cleaned up. So I'm going to go ahead and put these smaller ones in place first so I don't lose them. So these here go in those holes, but it looks like, yep, there's some ejector pin marks there, so I'm going to kind of clean those up. So same thing on this one. I need to scrape this little bit of ejector pin mark off and lightly sand the mold seam that is evident here. And here. So now we can glue those in place. So using my tweezers, put that one in there. That one in there. Little dab of glue there and there. Make sure they are pressed down and properly aligned. Then we can go on to something else. So real quick, like I think I'll put this little, looks like another bin of some kind. Whoops. Okay, and there is a front and a back. This little hasp looking thing goes that way, so we'll put that there. And I'll touch the glue right there. And right there. So I'm going to let that dry before I put these brackets on. Let's see, let's go ahead and put the toe pintle in place. It's hard, you can't put this upside down because it's a half circle hole, half circle pin. And it fits quite snugly, so you don't have to worry about it being crooked. And there's that. And then let's see, let's go ahead and do the brackets on the box. And this one, B1, goes on this side of the box here. So I'm going to put a little dab of glue. Like that. Get it in place, and then I'll reinforce it with some more glue. Make sure it is level. And then this one goes on this side. Do that. And that, whoops. Making sure there's a little cutout on the side where it fits, so there's not really any guesswork to making sure it's on there properly. And then this part here fits there and there, and then this bracket fits in those two spots. So put it in place like that. Fits like a glove. So we'll put glue on all the appropriate spots like that. Press it in place. That looks pretty good. All right. All right, now we can put these little lights in place. So this one goes here. So let's get a little dab of the old cement, put right there. Make sure it's squared up in the hole. Put just a little bit more cement just to make sure. And then this one goes here. That's pressed into place and square, and voila, that will take care of step 14. All right, next up, step 15, we've got some sub-assemblies. So let's start with the grouser box. Those are parts D21, 19, 21, 22, 25, and 26. And then I'm going to cut out the parts for the jack and for the spare fuel cans. Okay, so now I'm going to start gluing this stuff together. So first, I'll go ahead and glue this grouser box together. Move all of my little parts for these fuel cans and all that stuff out of the way. So here's how it works. First of all, I'm missing a part that I didn't cut off. Right here, 19, D19. Shameful, I tell you. All right, so there it is. Let's check and see if anything needs to be cleaned up on there. It looks pretty good, but I'll just hit it with the sanding stick a little bit. Okay, so now we can glue these together. So got these parts on the sides that have an angled top to them. So it fits like this. If I keep it in my hand there. So let's do this. Let's get a little bit of cement along there. The part with the tweezers. Put it in position. Like that. Make sure it's lined up. And put the other side on the same way. Like that. And this part goes on top. So I'm thinking, you know what? That's not the way it goes. Okay, this is something to watch for. Now there's two little teeny tiny indentations here and two teeny tiny pins. So these actually go on the outside like this, not on the inside. So that is something I should have paid a little bit more attention to. So I need to do this without getting fingerprints all over it. Okay, so I'm going to put just a little bit of cement on here just to hold it in place. There we go, that's better. Yeah, something looked odd, so it's always best to double check your work. That's another nice thing about this cement. Is you do have a little bit of time, you can pop it apart without wrecking anything. Okay, so we got that side. Now let's do this other side. Same way. See, in the amount of time that I'm faffing about trying to get this in place, a lot of that cement has evaporated. That's why. If you use it to tack it in place, put some more in there to make sure it bonds together. Okay, words to live by. Okay, next is the front. And there's some little teeny tiny pins there, one on each side of the bottom and then on the vertical sides, and those all fit into similar shaped indentations in the parts. So let's do this. I'm going to carefully touch it there and there and make sure it's pressed into place and that it lines up on the bottom. Let that sit for a second and dry, and then I'll monkey around with the top. Okay, I think that's had time enough to dry, so we'll put that on top like that. And it fits like a glove. Put some cement here and here. I think I need to put a little in the front. Like thusly. Splendid. All right, so that's together. So set that aside to dry. Now I will put together the jack. And it's pretty easy. Let's put it together here and see if it's gonna lay flat, and it does. So I'm gonna put a little bit of cement. There's a pin on the other part, holes there. Fits together just like that. Excelente, as they say. So let's put it right side up. And that's kind of cool. So there's a notch right here on this protruding square part that matches up with the little tab inside of that square part. So you can only, I mean, you could probably glue it any way you want, but it ensures some semblance of accuracy. And gluing it on like that. Oh, that's stellar. All right, so there's that, and then all I need to do is glue the handle on. And you know what, before I do that though, there is a bit of a seam line that needs to be addressed right here. Just a simple scrape. The old number 11. X-Acto blade, TM. Okay, I'm gonna, just for strength's sake, I'm gonna put a little bit of glue on the handle part here as well as the mounting point. That way it'll help it stay in place whenever there's weathering and all kinds of other shenanigans going on. And a little dab right there. And the jack is complete. Now it also shows to glue these brackets, but I think I'm going to glue those directly to the vehicle, and that way I can paint those with the vehicle, and I'm going to do the jack separately. But first we need to glue these. I'll only show you one, the rest of them I'll do off camera. So you have two halves. Now the nice thing about German jerry cans is they have very pronounced recessed seam all the way around them from the manufacturing process, so you don't have to worry about cleaning those up. That's pretty groovy. So I'll just put some cement on the bottom. Some cement right there. Some right there. I'm going to let that dry before I put the handle and the spout on. Make sure it's lined up, especially on the bottom where it glues onto the vehicle. All right, I got these glued together. Now I need to glue the filler caps and the handles on. Now the filler caps, they go, there's a flat side and a loop side. The loop side goes down. So here's what we're going to do. Put a little dab of glue right there. Put it in place. Kind of press it into place like that. Okay. I'm going to let that, needs it to be centered a little more. Like that. Okay. Okay, once those things have had a bit of time to set, you don't have to worry about bumping them. It's time to put on the handle part. And that fits just like that. The three handly part, oh my goodness, it's gonna stick to my finger. They should be kind of level with this part right here. It's centered. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put some cement on this part here so it'll stick. Like that. And then a little cement on each one of these handles. I'm going to let it soften up for a minute or two. Make sure it's centered. Like that. Alright, I'll put a little bit more cement down here. And then push it. Kind of hold that up there. Kind of push that down. Because you want it to really weld into place. And there you go. Okay, now these are all done, but these also are going to get set aside for painting because I don't, again, because they fit like this, I don't want to have trouble painting down in here, painting on the back side of these cans. So I'll put those in my parts ready to be painted container, like thusly, whoops, along with the jack. The grouser bin, that can be glued into place. There's 2 pins, 2 holes, just like the usuals, and fits pretty good there. So let's do this. Let's put a dot of glue on both of these pins. Then we'll add a little bit of liquid cement as well. And that will be, there's a contact point right there, so we'll use that. Like that. And then right here where it rests on the ribbing of the fender. So right there, and then let's do it on this side as well. That way it'll set up nice and tight. All right, and then we've got step 16, which will finish up the hull parts. So I'm going to put together the exhaust first, which is B21, 24, and 26. Here, 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 and here. So okay, it's nice because this exhaust tip is already drilled out, so I won't have to do anything weird with that. Well, not drilled out, it's molded. The ever popular slide molding. One of the hallmarks of a good kit. And so we'll get all this trimmed off. Get it glued together, let it set a bit so we can, how do you say, take care of the seams and such. Alright, so let's see how it goes together. So with this part facing down, this part goes in like this, and this. So this goes this way. Clever. So we'll put that right there, and hopefully put that right there. Oh, look at that. That's just splendid. So let's put a goodly amount of cement on here and smash it together good, so it will create a nice little bead of cement that we can squish out to ensure we get a nice tight seam. Now, seeing as how this is the exhaust, it's not ultra critical that you get it really super smooth and cylindrical unless you're doing a factory fresh vehicle, because it's going to get some texture and rust on it. Okay, let's put some in here for that part, like that. All right, put a little bit more here, and then squish it. See how that stuff oozed out of the seam there? That will ensure that we have a nice seam-free fit. So you do want to make sure there is just a little bit of flexibility in there. So you want to make sure that it's lined up, so you have nice and circle and not offset like that. Cylinder, circle, you know what I mean? Like that. Okay, so that looks good. So let's set that aside, because this is going to be another thing that's going to be glued on after everything else. So let's cut off C4, C5, and B25. C4, C5. Okay, so C5 goes on this side. C4 goes on this side. And that takes care of everything in the C-sprue. The only part left is this C16, which is the part I would have used on the front plate had I used the machine gun. So we got those. And then we need part B25, which is this here, which also finishes off the parts except for the commander. So there's another sprue down. So we'll clean this up like this. Clean these up like before. Sand the seam down like like that. This one as well. Like that. So now we can put these into position here. And here. A little bit of glue there and there. And one nice thing about this type of glue is you can really press it in and it will eliminate, on a good fitting part, it will eliminate any potential gaps or seams. Also, as you can see on these hooks, there's a little bit of fuzz from sanding it. Just use a little bit of liquid cement. It'll melt that right down. Make it all nice and neat and tidy looking. Tip of the day. All right, and then this goes here, and the opening faces that way. Whoops. And there's 2 pins on the back that help you line them up. So we got that. A little cement. Thusly. Make sure it's pressed in there. And there you have it. So with that, we have just finished step 16. Alright, so that completes the lower hull assembly, except for the parts I've left off to paint later. So I'm going to call this video quits right here, so it doesn't get any longer than it already is. And next time, come back, we'll start with step 17 and begin working on the turret. So, as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and the Plastic Models for Beginners series, the Tamiya 1/35 scale Panzer Kampfwagen 38T. So until next time, I will see you all later.